Doraemon, Meikyuu Daisakusen finally brings Japan's cultural ambassador to the PC Engine. Given the wild popularity of the character, the game systems that don't have a Doraemon title are the weird outliers. There's roughly 100 games out there starring the earless robot cat, assuming we count the surprisingly extensive line of educational titles. The concept behind Doraemon is that he's a robot cat from the future who travels back in time to help his owner's ancestor, Nobita Nobi, not be such a loser. The two of them have gotten into 6 decades of misadventures, which Doraemon tries to deal with using the endless array of futuristic gadgets that he pulls out of his pocket. Doraemon Meikyuu Daisakusen has its own weird gaming backstory. In the beginning, there was Heiankyo Alien. Initially a computer game developed at the University of Tokyo in 1979, it became hugely popular and was turned into an arcade game. Heiankyo Alien is one of those games that's a cornerstone of the early Japanese video game industry. It influenced everybody. And the concept was simple enough. Your little guy dug holes, aliens would fall in them, and then you'd bury them alive. Several years later, Heiankyo Alien was cloned by Nichibutsu to make the arcade game Kid no Ho-Ho Daisakusen. It took all of the concepts of Heiankyo Alien and expanded them, adding power-ups, many more stage layouts, obstacles in the mazes, the things that you'd expect from an expanded version. For some reason, Nichibutsu decided not to directly port this game to the Famicom. Instead, they used the concept and made another version, called Booby Kids, a title that has caused both snickering and disappointment for 30 years. A few years after that, Hudson made their own port of Kid no Ho-Ho Daisakusen, except they put Doraemon in it. Though when this game was released in the US as Cratermaze, the graphics that were used matched the ones in the arcade game. And because we didn't have enough going on from that, Doraemon Meikyuu Daisakusen is based on a film. And of course the film has a different name. Doraemon Nobita no Nippon Tanjo, or Nobita and the Birth of Japan. In the game, Doraemon and friends are doing some casual time traveling when they encounter a disruption in the space-time continuum accompanied by a giant Dogu statue. Everyone is scattered, and it's up to Doraemon to rescue all of them. The game consists of 64 maze-like levels, which presumably is where the title comes from, as Meikyuu Daisakusen could be translated as Labyrinth Campaign. On every stage, your goal is to collect all of the dorayaki, Doraemon's favorite food. Once you've collected all of the dorayaki, a key will appear nearby, and collecting that will let you exit the stage through the Anywhere door. Of course, there are enemies roaming the stage, and to deal with them, Doraemon can dig holes and fill them back in. You dig a hole by pressing button 2 and fill it in again the same way. If an enemy's in the hole when you fill it in, then you get some points. But the enemy will reappear a few moments later. A buried enemy leaves behind a cross, and that spot can't be dug up anymore, though you can still walk through it. There are 2 types of enemies. The green ones will pursue Doraemon directly, while the brown ones will randomly walk around. There are a lot of power-ups in Doraemon Meikyuu Daisakusen. Sometimes they'll just be sitting around out in the open for you to collect, while other times they'll be dropped by enemies after you bury them. The gloves will extend the reach of your digging. Collect 1 and you'll dig 2 holes when you press button 2. And this effect keeps growing until you can dig up an entire row at once. Another power-up is the bomb flower. After you collect it, for 30 seconds you can drop bombs by pressing button 1. The bomb will explode in a cross-shaped pattern after a few seconds. If those power-ups sound a little bit familiar to you, it might be because this is the first Hudson game designed by Shigeki Fujiwara. His first game is an interesting coincidence for him, since he designed the original Kid no Ho-Ho Daisakusen for Nichibutsu, and before he started working on games, he was a drawing assistant for Doraemon's creator Fujiko Fujio. In the 90s, Fujiwara would take on a different nickname based on the game that when he joined Hudson he wanted to revitalize. And throughout the 90s, Bomber Fujiwara was responsible for the Bomberman franchise. So we're going to be hearing from him a lot before this series is through. Other power-ups that you can get are a boot to make you run faster, a cape that makes you invincible, a stopwatch that freezes enemies in place, and a can of soda, I think, that makes enemies go in slow motion. There are also alternate weapons that you can pick up. These weapons last 30 seconds, though the timer isn't visible. There's a bubble gun that makes enemies just float off screen, a yo-yo that will knock them away, and a freeze beam that will turn enemies into a block of ice that can then be shoved. There's also an ice block power-up that freezes all enemies in the stage for 30 seconds. It's the same effect as the beam, it's just everyone and continuous. That brings me to my biggest problem with Doraemon Meikyuu Daisakusen. It is very, very easy. All of those power-ups that are temporary last for 30 seconds, but stages can be cleared in less than a minute, so if you get the invulnerability, you're pretty much done with the level. I didn't die until I was around stage 20, at which point I accidentally made one step too far and fell into some water. There are no guardrails against that in Doraemon. If you're invincible though, you can just walk on top of the water. If you die, you lose all of your power-ups, but the game is so easy, it's not really hard to work your way back. At stage 32, you encounter a boss, who just floats around as you collect dorayaki. Yeah, it's not even a real boss. Now, if you do manage to clear all 64 stages, then you get a password for a hard mode. But that is a long haul with a very easy game. If somehow you do manage to get a game over, then you'll get a password to let you continue from the stage you left off at, or if you have the Ten no Koe 2 memory bank, you can save your progress there. In Japan, this game seems to have a bit of a mixed reputation. Doraemon fans love it, and there's a lot of people who say it's a childhood favorite. But there's a lot of people who think that the game drags on way too much and becomes dull. My own feeling is a little bit above that. The basic gameplay elements here are fun. I just wish there were more enemies and they were a bit more aggressive. It's not bad if you want something light and unchallenging, but if you want something more, you're not going to be very satisfied.